The story mode is a track editor. It's similar to the time editor in Maya. So you have camera tracks on the top. You can insert audio track, video tracks. So that's more for cinematics or shots. If you just work on animation, you worry about the second timeline. You can insert character animation track or generic animation track. So if you add a character track, you can actually select one of the character that you have in your scene, right? And then you can add the current take. Right click on the timeline, insert current take, and now I have a take. So if I start moving it around, nothing happens. That's because the story mode has to be activated here or here. Same button. So the story mode is like a temporary mode where you can edit your take. So here I drag it. You could like split it with this little icon here. I actually made that a shortcut on my end. It's Alt R. Then I can drag it around, so you can edit the timing, but you can also edit the positioning. If you press W and you activate the little eye icon here, ghosting, you can actually move and offset the entire clip. So this is how you would, for example, realign motion capture take onto the scene origin, for example. So I have my first part here at the origin, and I have my second clip, so I can blend them together. See that the blend is linear by default, so I actually want to select both clips, come into fade in, fade out, and put it to smooth. Now you'll see that the curves are actually smooth, which is better, of course. And I can edit the timing. So here I have fairly fast timing. Let's say I want to make that slower. By default, you actually reduce the clip, so you're actually chopping it off, right? So now my clip isn't faster, I just make it end sooner, okay? And actually, if I want to scale it in terms of timing, you can click this, and now it actually gonna scale the keys and make it slower or faster. And you can see that it affects my speed here in the properties of the take from like 1 or 0.76, so now my clip is slower. I can see that the keys are a little bit spaced out and my clip is slower, so you can change the timing this way. Again, I made that a shortcut, that little toggle, it's Alt A for me, so I can switch between chopping or scaling the timing. Then I can Alt R cut, and now see, my original animation was 240 frames. You can see here the time range. But let's say that now I made it 150 rather. I can select all my clips and right click and say frame start and end. This way now my timeline is actually the length of my clips, so I don't have like dead frames at the end. Just have my animation and that's it. Now if I turn the story mode off, so see I have my whole edit here. If I turn it off, I go back to my original animation because again it's a temporary mode, so right now I still see my original animation. So I can maybe duplicate that take rig that I have, so I keep my original animation somewhere as a backup. I'm gonna call that rig edit, for instance. So now I'm on a new take. Actually, I wanted to keep that one 240 frames long. And now in rig edit, I can go back to story mode, select my character, and go to the drop down here, plot selected. And I plot my character on the scene, so if I disable the story mode, I see my edit. There is another option here. If you select your clips, you have plot whole scene to current take. I don't recommend using that because it's going to plot absolutely everything in your scene. So if you have cameras or other characters, it's also going to plot them. And I think you just want to plot that character that you were working on. So when you have a clip in the story and you made some edits, let's say I speed this one up and I move it around, you can still update the animation and refresh your clip. So here I have a second take with the same animation, but I applied the idle pose at the end. So it's a bit different. I can come in my story on my new take and say right click, update from current take. So now it kept my edits on the story, but using the new animation with the new pose. And if you just want to animate or edit one object in the scene, you can add a generic track. Let's say I want to edit the root bone differently than the character. I can add that root bone. So I hold X, click and drag from anywhere in the viewport and bring it into the track contents drop down. So here I added root control. I could add more objects if I wanted to. I could add like the arm or just a null or a mesh or anything, and I could see all the objects that are in my take. And insert current take, and now I'm gonna edit the root bone independently. So the tracks stack up downwards. So my animation track 1 is under character track, and it's actually overriding character track. Okay, so it's like reverse compared to the layers, which are going upward in terms of hierarchy, and this is going downward for some reason. Let's see how to blend different takes together using story mode. So here I have a jump animation, and the character blends into a run at the end. And I have also my run cycle here, a continuous run cycle. Let's say I want to add a bit more steps at the end of my jump. So he lands, and I want to add an extra cycle so that there's more blending time once in the engine. So I'm going to take my jump, I'm going to add it to the current takes, insert take. So now I have my second take, the jog, and you can see that the jog goes from 0 to 46. So, and my other take is a bit longer. It goes from -1 to 55. So if I insert the take now, it's going to be inside the other take, and Mobu doesn't like that at all. It may crash. So if I do this, you can see that there's like a confusion. They're both on top of each other, and that's no good. So maybe just temporarily move that jump animation away and insert, and this way like they are, you know, next to each other but not one inside the other. So I'm just going to shift them around again, maybe duplicate that jump take that I had, call it like jump jog blend. I'm going to activate my story. So now I have the two takes going one after the other, right? So he jumps, he runs a bit, and then he has the run cycle starting from 0. So what we want to do is sync that jog cycle in terms of space, so put it like at the end of the jump, and also sync the footsteps. So I'm going to extend my timeline because my animation is going to be longer, maybe put it to 75. And if I press Ctrl A, I see the ghost of both clips, so I see the blue ghost. So if it's not clear enough, you can always come into the properties of your takes and make it brighter. So maybe favor like one color or two, and for the other one as well, I'm going to favor like 2 colors. So now when I refresh my story, I see the ghost a bit brighter. If you have the control rig display, it may not help you, like maybe there's too much going on and it's hard to see. So you want to disable the display of the control rig. And I see the blue clip going on, and I see the ghost of the red, which is my next clip. And so when I'm on the red clip, I see the ghost of the blue one. To match them, I'm first going to match the timing actually. So I'm going to go in front view with Ctrl F. So I ignore the forward motion and I just see it from the front. I'm going to look at the end of the first clip. So here he pushes on his right foot, there's a passing pose, and then he comes into contact of the left heel around here, frame 50. I'm just going to remember that he plants at frame 50. So we want to find moment of the cycle animation where he plants his left heel. So that's about here, this frame. So often I just like cut it, I remove the first part, I come here at frame 50, and I bring in my other take. So I know that those two like parts are matching in terms of timing. It's a moment where there's a similar foot planning. And I know that I had some leeway before on that jog take, so I can actually blend in some more. So now I have enough room to blend. I have at least like 15 frames, half a second, and I can double check that my foot plants are nice and synced. So here he plants the right foot, and he comes in and plants the second foot. You can actually see here that it's not exact, like my blue foot comes in a bit sooner than my red foot, so I can maybe tune it one more frame. And if I want a shorter blend, I can shorten up the second take, or usually you want more blend than less blend, right? You can see by default the blend is linear, so you want to select both takes and come into the properties, go to fade in, fade out, and change the fade in interpolation to smooth and the fade out to smooth. It refreshes when you come back to the track. You can also select both and right click and say fade in interpolation smooth, fade out interpolation smooth. So now you can see that the blend is very seamless between the two clips. Maybe I'm gonna have to clean some foot sliding though later on when we are done with story mode, because the feet aren't exactly positioning at the same X translation, but that's fine. I don't want to like realign that clip and off-center it, because if I start doing this, I actually off-center my root bone, so I prefer to clean up the foot rather than offsetting the entire clip. Because usually in games you want things to go on a straight line. So we matched the timing, so now we can actually match the translation as well, because remember that my original jog was starting from the scene origin. So when I look at in side view now, the end of my jump is going forward, and then he slides back to the other take. So I can actually do it manually, side view with Control R, go at like the middle of the blend between the two takes, so where there's a crossing, and maybe move that red take forward so it kind of matches. So maybe I'm just gonna, usually I just look at the hips, like the spine, see if they're well aligned. And I check that during the contact there's not too much difference, but I would like go in and clean up the foot's contact anyway, but you can also match by the foot. It depends what you favor. Then you also want to like play back the anim and make sure there's like a continuous motion and not a speed up. Like you want to avoid this, right? This effect where here you can feel that the character is moving forward. There's like a whoom, it's speeding up right now. If I make it more obvious. But he moves too fast, so you want to make sure there's a nice continuity. So I think what I had at the beginning was kind of nice. So this is one way of doing it. You can also actually match exactly the take. So if the take was like super far away, like before, there's a mismatch. You can also take an object on the character. So let's say I select my root bone controller, and I select my red clip, which I want to match to my blue clip. You can go here in the matching options. So it automatically recognizes that I have my root controller selected. Otherwise, if it wasn't selected, you can come in the list and try and find it. So usually your character extensions will be all the way at the bottom. So the root is probably somewhere at the bottom. Select that, and you have some options. So I want to select my red clip to my blue clip, so I want to match to the previous clip in this case, and I want to match either at current time, so here would be frame 48, or maybe right between the two clips. That's pretty a nice option. And I want to match here everything. So now it automatically snapped to my clip. So this is a little bit faster, but it's also nice to double check and make sure that it's exactly what you want. So I can bake that. and turn off story mode. And if I need, I can edit the feet and prevent them from sliding. And another example of what you can do with the story mode. Here I have a walking cycle, and I have on another take, gesture where he does this kind of a salute with his arm. And let's say I want to mix that together and have him like walk and then play this animation on the upper body. So I'm going to duplicate my walk take and call it like walk gesture. Go back to my walk, right click, insert take. And to blend different body parts, the best is to use different tracks. So you can blend clips together like one after the other on the same track, or you can like stack them up as layers. So I'm going to duplicate my track just so I don't have to reset up the character. But I can also say insert character track and re-add the same character. And I'm going to jump on my gesture animation, add that. So again, it's asking me because I have a layer, it's asking me if I want to merge. Say OK. And on my walk gesture, so first thing I see is my walk is way shorter than my gesture cleanup. So maybe during my gesture I'm going to need the character to do at least 2 walk cycles. So I'm going to turn off my gesture for now. I'm going to take my walk cycle and I want to duplicate it, and if I duplicate it just like that, my character like starts from the origin and then snaps back to the origin. So this is no good. I actually want to, the quickest way is to select the root controller, select your clip, say auto, so it's auto matching, and I'm going to copy paste it. So now it automatically puts the next clip right where the first clip ends. So I have a longer walk cycle now. I'm going to make my walk gesture take 120 frames long. And now if I reactivate my gesture track, I can see that there's the white walk playing underneath, but it's completely overridden by my gesture track. So if I go in forward mode to ignore the forward motion, so it's easier. If I start like turning down the weight of my gesture track, there's a mix, but my gesture doesn't play entirely. You can see that it's just partially playing. So I actually don't want to like blend it down. I want to use a mask. So here I want to ignore the lower body on my gesture track, and I want to maybe ignore the character extensions as well, because my root bone is a character extension, and because my character is moving forward, I prefer to keep the root bone from the walking animation, not the gesture, which is stationary. If you absolutely need to keep other character extensions but not the roots, you could duplicate your walking track, put it above the gesture, and this time do the other way around, ignore the entire body, actually kind of ignore everything, and maybe just drag and drop your root control here and say replace. So now I have my root, but I still have my character extensions here, so if I have like weapons or other extensions that I want to keep, I can keep it. So now my character is moving forward, and at some point he's playing the gesture, which is very nice. I can just see that maybe at the beginning the blending feels a bit off. So what I want to do is just have this track come in and out, fade in and fade out a bit more smoothly. So I have 2 ways of doing that. I can animate the weight. So maybe I first want to key where I want my take to be at 100%, maybe here. And I'm going to key again when I want to make sure that the gesture is still playing. And I'm going to fade it out as he goes away, like this. Maybe at the beginning I also want to start with a 0% or maybe 25%. So now it blends in and out, and then blends back to the full walk, so it's a bit more natural. If you animate the weight and you want to see the keys of that animation, you select the clip, then go in and select the weight here in the properties. And now I can see the keys, so it's easier to edit. I can edit the timing of of those keys. I can jump in and see where they are. I can select them all and say interpolation auto. Just remember that if you deselect your track and start playing on the character, you will still see those keys because your property is still selected. So when you're done tuning your weight keys, just make sure you unselect it. So that's one way of doing it. Otherwise, you can remove remove this animation on the track. I can also take the cursor here and start blending in and out. So you can see that this is similar to when I have two clips blending one after the other on the same track. I see those kind of profile going down and going up. So this is kind of the same thing. It's just that when you do it on a clip on its own track, you want to make sure you select pass through. So when it's at 0, it's going to play what's on the first track. So here I have a nice blend in, and at the end I want to blend out. And if you want that blend out to end faster, maybe you want to crop and chop your animation, chop your clip, and make that blend a bit shorter. You can see that the profile is linear, which is evil, so you want to go to fade in interpolation smooth and fade out interpolation smooth. So I basically have the same result, and on top of that I could still play with the actual weight. So if I want this profile of ease in, ease out, but reduce the intensity, the master intensity of my gesture, I can still play around with the weight on top of this. So of course, when you mix animations like this, you need to be aware of your IK blending. If I put some IK blending translation on the chest, you may see some artifacts like this where he tries to stay all the way back there. That's because the translation of the gesture is all the way there, right, in the original take. So when you blend like this with displacement, you want to maybe turn off all the IK blend translation for the upper body in this case. And last detail, let's say that I don't like the fact that his right arm is completely stiff and plays the animation during that whole thing. I can always duplicate my original track again. On top of everything, my walk track, disable the lower body, disable the head, disable the spine, disable the left arm, and just keep the right arm. If you see a bug like this, you want to go in and remove clip offset. So now during the entire animation, my right arm is still moving around nicely. It's just a little stable, like you see when the character move his chest, rotate his chest. The arm is a bit too stable, so I can come in and reduce the blend R. So it kind of rotates with the spine a bit. And I can also just reduce the intensity of that clip, so it's a little bit more natural, a bit more subtle. So that's one way of doing it. Otherwise, with the original setup, so just the walk, the gesture, and the root bone, you could also just bake this entire animation on full body. So remember, I still have my arm a bit stiff here. I'm going to blend in full body. Then I'm going to reduce the intensity of my gesture. So you can see the right arm is playing the walk a bit more. And I can just bake that body part if I want. I don't have to bake full body every time. I can just bake the right arm. And now when I come back to the timeline and disable the story mode, I have my gesture and I have the right arm a bit more natural.